In addition to uncertainty, the second thing he has to say about life is that life has brevity. And he says it this way in James 4:14. What is your life? Good question. For you are a mist, one word. We're going to focus on that appears for a little time and then vanishes. So in the Bible, there's a whole genre of literature, and the Bible is a library of 66 books written by 39 authors over the course of a few thousand years. And there's a whole genre of literature contained therein called the wisdom literature. And wisdom is practical and it's pithy and it's poetic. It's about life and the stuff of life. And the Bible uses this language and analogy that believing in God is having a walk with God. And wisdom is, what's my next step? God, do you want me to live there or here? Buy the house, sell the house. Do you want me to get married or wait? Do you want us to have a kid now or is it not time? Do you want me to work this job or quit this job? Do you want me to choose this degree or choose that degree? Wisdom is, what's your next step in that walk with God? And so in the Old Testament, the wisdom literature is first philosophy. God saved me at the age of 19 in college, and I was studying philosophy as one of the areas that I was delving into. And they said, philosophy started with the Greeks, Epimenides, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. And I guess you could throw in Alexander the Great. And then I started reading the Bible, and I learned that actually the first philosophers were God's people. 1,000 years before the Greeks, the Hebrews, the Jews, they had philosophy called the wisdom literature. And so Song of Solomon is about love, and Job is about suffering, and Psalms is about how to worship God through the highs and lows of life. Ecclesiastes is about the meaning of life. It's the exact same question that James posits here, and James is the New Testament book of wisdom literature. And what I believe James is doing here is I believe he is pulling up and commenting on the Old Testament book of Ecclesiastes, which is one of my favorite books of the Bible. It's 28 chapters, and about 38 times in the English translations, there's a little word called Hebel in the original Hebrew, not to get super nerdy on you, but this word Hebel, it defines life. And he asks the question here, what is life? Well, that's the question that Ecclesiastes similarly seeks to answer. And it starts with this word, Hebel, Hebel, says the teacher. Everything is Hebel. And the book begins and ends with this Hebrew word, Hebel. And how you define that word is how you understand your life. So it's a big deal. Now, not surprisingly, the word for our life is very complicated because life is very complicated. Various English translations will translate it meaningless, vanity, and emptiness. Life can be meaningless, but it doesn't need to be. If you love God and neighbor, it can actually be very meaningful. Life can be lived in vain, just pointless and worthless, a wild goose chase with no goose, or it can be lived very purposefully and not be empty, but be filled with the Spirit. And so how we define this word is really important. And this word is elsewhere interpreted in the Old Testament as vapor, breath, or mist. I believe that's exactly what James is saying, that our life is like a vapor, breath, or mist. So think of it in this way. How many of you on a cold morning have breathed out? Now, if you've always lived in the valley, Google this. You wake up on a crisp, cool morning, and you take a breath, and what do you see? You see the mist of your breath, and there it is, and then it's gone. And what he says is, that's your life. It's very sobering. And what he's saying is that life is very brief and short. And this is more of a pastoral sermon, and I love you. But let me just tell you this. The older you get, the faster life goes. When you're young, it feels like it's taking forever. The older you get, it just feels like you can't keep up. Like I went to the store the other day, and they've got all the Christmas stuff up. I'm like, we just had Christmas 17 minutes ago. I mean, it's crazy. My youngest son is getting ready to get his driver's license. Got 5 kids. I can remember, giving him piggyback rides 13 minutes ago. At least that's what it feels like. How many of you, the older you get, it's like, man, every day just feels like a minute. And every year just feels like a day. It just moves so fast. It goes so quick. I mean, it's crazy. I turned 51 here last month, and, I don't know how old I'm going to live to be. Probably depends on what I do with burritos, but, and I'm praying about it. But like, I'm in the second half of my life. And I can't believe how quickly time goes. And what he says is that life has uncertainty. You don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. And life has brevity. You don't know how many days you've got. Let me give you two stories on this and why this is so important. What he's saying is that life has these sacred windows of opportunity and memory. And if you miss them, they're gone forever. And the truth is, we tend to think that, tomorrow we'll forgive them. Tomorrow we'll love them. Tomorrow we'll pray for them. Tomorrow we'll grab a meal with them. Tomorrow we'll visit with them. Tomorrow we're going to encourage them. Tomorrow we're going to serve them. Tomorrow we're going to be generous toward them. And the truth is, none of us is guaranteed tomorrow. I still remember the first person that I loved and lost. It was my Grandpa George. I've talked about him quite a bit. I loved him with all my heart. He was one of my favorite people. I just have nothing but good memories with my grandpa. He was a diesel mechanic. He wore overalls. At some point, he just gave up on anything with a waist. Just gave up. I surrender all. And so just keeps letting out the overalls and eating caramel apples. That was my Grandpa George. And so I have nothing but good memories. And I would go stay at his house and hang out. And we had a great time. And I remember I was supposed to go stay the night at his house. And my mom said, Marky, she still calls me Marky. I talked to her this week. She said, Marky, you've got like standardized tests at school in the morning. You can't stay at your grandpa's tonight. Maybe the next night or the night after that. I was like, okay, Mom. And so I called my Grandpa George. I was 10. I said, I can't go to your house tonight, but maybe tomorrow night or the night after. He's like, great. Anytime, you're welcome at my house. I look forward to seeing you. The next day, I took the test. I went to, it was either Cub Scouts or Boy Scouts or something, and I saw my mom and dad pull up, and my mom and dad got out of the car, and my mom was very emotionally distraught. My dad was comforting her, and I could tell that something was wrong, and they were showing up early. I wasn't supposed to leave yet, and so I ran to my folks. I was like, what's going on? My mom was very distraught, and she said, your grandpa died. And that was her dad. She loved her dad very much. They were very close. And I was like, oh my gosh, I talked to him last night, and I was supposed to go to his house tonight. Like we were supposed to go to breakfast the next day, and it's over. And I had never, as a kid, 10 years old, I had never once thought of not having my grandpa. And now he's gone. Some years ago, Grace lost her dad. His name was Gibb. Grandpa Gibb is what the kids called him. And I would just publicly say my kids, they got first-round draft picked on both sides for grandparents. My mom and dad and Grace's mom and dad, incredibly good to our kids, incredibly good, very invested and involved in their life growing up. And Grandpa Gibb was a pastor. He planted a church. He called it Trinity Church. We named this church in honor of him and in memory of him. And he pastored there 40-some years. And some years ago, we had Grace's whole family over for Christmas Day. We had my family over on Christmas Eve, her family over on Christmas Day. And Grandpa Gibb was there, and he did what he always does. He loved the kids. He prayed for them. He was a pastor, very compassionate, kind-hearted, loving man. And we enjoyed our time with him, had dinner with him. He prayed over the kids. And then we took the kids to California to get a little sunshine and Disney trip post-Christmas. And we got a call, hey, Grandpa Gibb's in the hospital. He's not doing good. So I immediately put Grace on a plane to get her there as soon as possible because it was her daddy. And I was like, okay, let me figure out what to do with the kids and get flights and cancel where we're staying. And let me figure out how to get us coordinated. But honey, you go see your dad and talk to Grace. She's like, you and the kids need to get here immediately. He's not doing well. He's in the hospital. It doesn't look like he's going to make it. And so I grabbed the kids. We got on a plane. We flew up. Then we had to get a car, a couple-hour drive over a snowy mountain pass. We show up. There he is. He never said another word. He died. He died. And we saw him just sort of breathing his last, but he couldn't communicate. It's like, man, we just had Christmas with Grandpa Gibb. The last thing I heard from Grandpa Gibb was him praying over the kids. What a great final memory. I'm glad it wasn't arguing with the kids or yelling at the kids. He wasn't that man. The point is this: life has uncertainty and it has brevity. You don't know what tomorrow holds, and tomorrow may not come. And we get so busy planning to live that we forget to live. We get so busy trying to figure out how to get ready for tomorrow that we overlook the opportunities provided today. I want you to be present in your life. I don't want you to just work on your life. I want you to live in your life. As a dad, I didn't even know that I had done this until very recently. Ever since my daughters were born, we got 2 girls, 3 boys, 2 girls. Every time that they entered the room or I entered the room, I approached them and I kissed them on the head. I don't know if I've ever missed. If so, it was an accident. The point is that every time one of my daughters and I are in the same room, I want to pursue them, I want to love them, and I want to bless them because someday I won't be there. So I want to make sure I don't miss any of those opportunities to bless them and to love them and to pursue them. I don't want to miss any of those opportunities. You think, well, I'll forgive my spouse tomorrow. I'll tell my folks I love them tomorrow. I will look my kid in the eye and pray over them tomorrow. Why not today? When the kids were growing up, life was busy and full, especially with 5 kids, and I just wanted to be there. I call this the ministry of presence. Just be there for those sacred memories and windows of opportunity. There was one year, the 3 boys, they all played baseball, and they had enough games as boys that they had more games than a Major League Baseball team does in a season. That's 162 games. I looked at the calendar, I was like, oh boy, because none of them can drive, so we got to figure this out. And I just remember putting the boys' schedules on my calendar and saying, I'm going to make, every year, did this for years, as many games as I possibly can. Because someday they're going to hang up their cleats and they're going to hang up their glove. And I can't go to any more games. And someday I'm going to go home to be with the Lord. And so I spent my whole life going to kids' baseball games. And it was in terrible weather. It was always raining and cold, and they're playing through storms. I saw my oldest son pitch through a snow flurry one time. And so we traveled all over the place. So I was the crazy dad. I got a chair that had an umbrella over it. And I got thousands of books on my laptop with Logos Bible software, and I got a hotspot on my phone, and I would wear a parka, and I had fingerless gloves, and I am writing systematic theology books at Little League games, and then they'd get up to bat, But every time they got up, they would look over, and I just wanted them to know, you are a priority, and I am present. And I don't miss any of that. I have so many memories. Here's what I'm telling you. Making money is fine. Making memories is more important. Because you can't take your money with you, but you could take your memories with you into the kingdom of God. I'll never forget my daughter Ashley. She ran track. She was fast, all-state sprinter. And I would always wait at the finish line. And she always had big pigtails and glasses. She looked like the world's fastest librarian. She did. She totally did. And I would wait, and she would always look over because she knew that her dad would be waiting there at the finish line. And she got injured on one occasion, and she had to rehabilitate, and she missed a few meets, and then she got to go back to racing, and so she had a meet. And she said, Daddy, I'm gonna run again this week after a few weeks off. I said, that's great. She said, yeah, but I'm only gonna run one race. It's just gonna be the 100. I'm gonna run the 100. And I said, okay, honey. I said, well, I'm gonna be there. I wanna see that. And she's like, no, Daddy, no. You got to drive to a ferry terminal. You got to wait for a boat. You got to get on a long ferry ride through an island chain. You land in the middle of nowhere, and then you got to drive a few hours to this remote school, and it's going to be cold and windy and raining, and I'm only going to run one race, and it's going to take you a whole day just to get there and back. And I told her, I said, no, I'm going to go. She's like, no, you can't go. She's firstborn, so we talk about things. And I said, no, I'm going to go. She's like, no, you can't go, Dad. That's crazy. That's a waste of time. I said, okay. So I stopped arguing with her, and I just went. And she ran the 100. She would run in the high 12s, low 13s, so 12 or 13 seconds. I spent a whole day. I canceled all my meetings. I think I canceled a speaking engagement, a flight. Like, I shut everything down so that I could be there for 12 or 13 seconds. She didn't know I was there. She crossed the finish line. It's freezing. It's a driving rain. It's windy. She looks over, she smiles, she said, I knew you'd be here. And I said, yeah, I'll always be here until I'm not here. Life has uncertainty and it has brevity. Don't be looking so forward into the future that you overlook the people and opportunities that are right in front of you. Today's a good day to say, I'm sorry. Today's a good day to say, I forgive you. Today's a good day to say, I love you. Today's a good day to say, I've cleared my calendar and I'd like to see you. Life has uncertainty. Life has brevity. Here's the good news. He then speaks of God. He says that God has sovereignty. In a world that has uncertainty and brevity, it's nice to know that God has sovereignty. There is actually a God. I have good news for you. And he's in charge, and he's good. In fact, he calls himself a father.